Abby Martin, welcome, because obviously we're going to be talking about the horrific genocide that's taking place in Gaza. And I just want to clarify, we are recording this before there has been a ground invasion, but obviously every day, every hour, that could change. So if that has happened after this goes out, just keep that in mind as you watch this. Um, but anyways, Abby, I guess there's so much to discuss. You've done so much journalism on the issue of Palestine, both on the ground and away. And I want to start off by asking you about your documentary, Gaza Fights for Freedom, which was released in 2019. And that was 4 years ago. And it's an excellent documentary for anybody who hasn't watched it. I encourage you to go check it out after you've watched this episode. I will include a link to it in the description. And it's still making a huge impact to help people understand the situation that Gaza is in, which has obviously gotten significantly worse in the last 2 weeks. But can you maybe start out by telling our audience, what is Gaza Fights for Freedom about, and why does it still matter as we witness the atrocities being committed against Gaza right now?
Well, Rania, I think everyone has that light bulb moment. Like mine was the Gaza Flotilla massacre in 2010 when Israeli commandos, jumped on a ship in international waters and just executed, I think, like 9 peace activists, 1 American citizen. And then, of course, the fog of war coming out of that attack was literally apologizing and whitewashing this massacre. And I think that really woke me up to, wow, something is very, very wrong with what we're being told with this so-called Israel-Palestine conflict. And then, everything compounded as I started working with Palestinians. And every time Israel would go on one of their bombardments of Gaza every couple of years, bombing people in essentially a caged area, my friends and colleagues that were Palestinian had to check in every couple hours to see if their families were dead or alive. And it was just so harrowing and so horrifying. Fast forward to the Great March of Return. This was, I think, when Mike and I went to the occupied West Bank in 2017. This was a year before Palestinians in Gaza decided to do this mass civil disobedience action where for 18 months they were going out every single Friday, tens of thousands at the beginning. And then it kind of whittled down into just thousands of people. I mean, this was a consistent, determined action, completely unarmed. Men, women, children, medics, journalists, all of these people went out. It was in no way directed or engineered by Hamas, this cartoonish depiction of Hamas, stage managing everything in Gaza and taking away Palestinians' agency. It was devised by a poet named Ahmed Artema, who just simply wanted to kind of do this peaceful action where he was drawing attention to their plight as refugees. And it was mostly symbolic to erect tents and basically call attention to their plight as refugees and show the international community, look, we're still here generations later as besieged refugees, ethnically cleansed right from this partition where our ancestral lands are just right there. We can see them, that we can't go to them. And I think we know what happened, Rania, is that Israeli snipers perched up on hilltops just took everyone out, looking at people, civilians, through their scopes, their sniper scopes, and took out journalists, medics, children, disabled people. These are all egregious war crimes under the Geneva Conventions in a standing army, like between armies, an armed battle. It's still egregious war crimes to target those protected groups. So the fact that there were no militants shooting at Israeli soldiers, it was just simply civilians en masse, and Israeli snipers still picked them off one by one. Every couple hours, you would hear this shot ring out and people would just drop dead or drop injured and wounded and be brought back through the ambulances. And then, of course, they would target the ambulances. And when this happened, I just thought there's nothing that's going to be more egregious than this, right? I mean, Israel is committing such heinous war crimes for all the world to see. And there's no argument. There's no argument that they could give. There's no fog of war. There's no flipping the script here. That's why we wanted to work with Palestinian journalists to tell this story, because I just thought, look, this is such a clear-cut case of Israeli war crimes. It's incontrovertible. It's super proven. We based the entire framework of the movie around this UN report that was released. Everything's documented. But Rania, it just didn't matter. And now, 2023, that was 4 years ago, as you mentioned. Israel's taking out as many people as they killed in the Great March of Return in like every couple hours. I can't keep up with the amount of civilians that are dying in mass because in the Great March of Return, it was 214 people that were picked off by Israeli snipers, 8,000 people shot with live ammunition. And now every couple hours, I'm hearing that hundreds of people, are dying every couple hours. And it's just like, you think that it can't get worse, and it just does. And they made the Great March of Return about Israel, and they made it about the human shields, and they continued to pose as the victim even during that. And international law did nothing, and the UN sat back and did nothing, and the US continued to greenlight Israeli apartheid. And so the audacity, the hubris, and the arrogance of thinking that you can keep 2.3 million people in this caged ghetto and not expect anything to happen. And so that's led us to where we are today. And even in the movie, it said that, by 2020, the UN was saying this is an uninhabitable area. The lack of potable water, I mean, all of those things. So that was 4 years ago. And it was already 50% of all diseases were because of toxic water. I mean, how is this sustainable?
I mean, obviously it's not. And now Gaza's dealing with a situation where it's just being completely leveled. You have Israeli leaders essentially saying we want to turn it into a parking lot. And honestly, at this point, it's like you have no words anymore, because just watching image after image, I'm just not sure, like, what is the world's threshold for videos of Palestinian children in Gaza being chopped into pieces by American bombs delivered by Israeli jets? Like, obviously over 2,000. And that's probably an underestimate, because like right now they're talking about hospitals shutting down. They've run out of fuel. I mean, you think about like the babies and incubators lie that the US spread in the lead up to the first Gulf War in Congress, that famous lie. In this case, it's not a lie. Actually, babies and incubators in Gaza are very likely right now dying because Israel's denying fuel to hospitals. And I just don't understand how anyone can see images of children, I don't care who they are, just any children, being chopped up into pieces and dying needlessly, being murdered, and call that self-defense or standing by a civilized country or any of the insane rhetoric we've heard.